First responders have certainly felt it. Last year, I stood up and was cautiously optimistic in announcing some decreases in the state of Florida's total opioid overdose deaths. I said we would need to be patient while we saw some of these numbers keep coming out and stabilizing so we could see what this trend was, but we were excited last year to see that some of our initial efforts, from law enforcement to dealing with addiction to making sure life-saving treatments were in the hands of first responders, we thought that those efforts were starting to pay off. So today we are releasing and announcing the 2023 Drugs Identified in Deceased Persons Annual Report. And we are pleased to see a staggering 12% decline in fentanyl-caused deaths and a 10% decrease among total opioid-related deaths. So this is the fourth report of its kind that shows a decrease. And so I think this is, I can say stand here now and say that these are the types of numbers we like to see when we say our efforts are paying off. We think that this trend is headed in the right direction, and we can expect these based on some things we'll discuss with you in terms of future plans. We think these numbers will continue. Additionally, even more optimistic about the future of this trend is some provisional data that was recently released by the CDC, and that reflects an even greater decrease here in Florida, a 17% decrease in overdose-related deaths. Now, these numbers are encouraging. I keep in mind, as I talk about these percentages, a 12% decrease in overdose deaths, that represents lives. So according to the report we're releasing today, 777 fewer people in Florida died from opioid-related deaths last year compared to the year prior. So that's a great statistic. That still means we're losing 7,000 people a year to overdose. That's almost 20 people a day here in Florida. So this is exciting progress, but it's crucial to remember our fight is not over, our work is not done, and that is why we cannot take our foot off the gas and pushing back in so many ways against those that are bringing these substances to our state, and making sure that we have in place structures to help those that are suffering from addiction. So right now, as you can see, I'm standing with the great men and women of the Lake County Sheriff's Office. Lake County is one of 5 counties in the Leesburg Medical District. Now, when we look at overdose deaths and stats in Florida, we go according to medical districts because we look at medical examiners' reports that are determining cause of death. So I'm proud to say this district, the Leesburg district, was one of the highest, the second specifically, to see the largest decrease in overdose deaths. So while we're looking at a statewide decrease of 12%, I am proud to say, and I'm going to brag on the people standing with me here today, in this medical district, we saw a staggering 40% decrease in overdose deaths year over year. That's 133 fewer deaths. So Florida's decrease in fentanyl occurrences and opioid-related deaths are a testament to a lot of hard work and efforts and strategy, really, coming out from our great leaders in Tallahassee and our communities across the state. I want to thank Governor DeSantis as well as our legislative leaders who really have embraced certain policies to try and not only target poison peddlers, the fentanyl traffickers, which is incredibly important, and I want to talk about that, but they have also shown that they are willing to fund other out-of-the-box, forward-thinking measures to combat the addiction that we are seeing. So whether that's making sure our first responders have life-saving medications on them and are able to respond effectively to an overdose, but also making sure that those who are struggling with addiction have the ability and know where to go to get treatment. So I want to make sure that everybody knows here where we saw a 40% decrease, we're standing in Lake County, but that also includes Hernando, Marion, Sumter, and Citrus. They are also in that Leesburg district. So to the Lake County men and women of the fire department, the sheriff's office, all of our law enforcement, we say thank you. I know as the wife of a law enforcement officer, I know what it means for you to sign up for these jobs and wake up every day and put that badge on and go to work knowing you're going to see things that you probably have never seen in your life. Every day is a new one. And with the opioid crisis and the fentanyl challenges that we have seen, we have asked law enforcement to step up in ways they never imagined when they took the oath to serve. And now they truly are called. They wear not only a badge, a gun, all of the things that you would traditionally find on a belt, they also carry with them naloxone so that they can be lifesavers. And I think these numbers reflect that they have embraced that new role as we call upon them to adapt and change in the way that they serve Floridians routinely. They have embraced this, and they have done so passionately and willingly, and we are seeing the numbers reflect that. We know that the extra fentanyl in our state and in our country poses unique threats to law enforcement as they respond. We've seen numerous examples where law enforcement themselves have fallen ill in trying to do their jobs as a result of fentanyl. And so we thank them today and every day, but especially on National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. Because of these frontline officers, our state is safer, and we can boast about this progress that we're announcing today. I would also like to say thank you to Shatterproof. They have launched treatmentatlas.org. It's something that our state has embraced. It has a list of all of the available mechanisms that people can go to seek treatment for addiction based on where you are, your income level. That's treatmentatlas.org. If you are dealing and struggling with addiction, I would encourage you to go there. And lastly, I just want to say thank you to Commissioner Glass, all of law enforcement who have embraced our SAFE grants. And I know Commissioner Glass is going to talk about this. SAFE stands for our Safe Assistance for Fentanyl Eradication Initiative grants. This was additional monies we pushed into law enforcement to specifically go after fentanyl. Fentanyl is a poison like we have never seen. It is incredibly deadly. We have to get it off the streets so it is not laced with other traditional drugs, then people ingest it without even knowing that. That is what is driving a lot of these overdose deaths. As a result of these SAFE grants and the millions of dollars dedicated to that from the legislature, law enforcement has seized more than 290 pounds of fentanyl. And I want to put that in perspective. That means they have taken out of our communities enough fentanyl that could have killed every Floridian 3 times over. So when we talk about saving lives and drugs that could have been laced in others or just sold outright and taken lives, taking those out of the community is meaningful. And the stats that we're announcing today bear that out. This has only been in place for a short amount of time. We expect that these grants moving forward are going to continue to save lives throughout Florida. We are faced with very unique challenges here, not only in Florida, but across our nation. Dealing with what has been for the last 3 or 4 years an unprecedented surge of not only illicit substances like fentanyl pouring into our country, but transnational criminal organizations that push those allowed into our country and allowed to take root and operate. I have been very clear. I believe not just Florida, but every state needs to do a deep dive into statutes that deal with organized crime, gangs in particular, and determine what they can do to not only enhance penalties, but make it easier for prosecutors to go after these transnational criminal members. It is the only way we're going to keep them from taking root in states. In Florida, we are being very proactive about that. I'm going to ask for legislation to be pushed this year to address that. These transnational criminal organizations have to be uprooted from this nation, and yes, they will be from Florida. We will do everything in our power to make sure that happens. As you know, Florida, I was the first AG to push to making fentanyl labeled a weapon of mass destruction, as well as designating these transnational criminal organizations that seek to do our citizens harm as foreign terrorist organizations. That will bring to bear not only the manpower and the coordination among requisite agencies, it also brings to bear additional resources. So I appreciate you being here today. So much is going into protecting Floridians. So much has gone into announcing these incredible numbers. I am so proud of those that have pulled together and worked together across the state of Florida that made today possible, and I'm really glad we're able to make this announcement on today, which is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. And without further ado, we'll bring up our Commissioner of Law Enforcement for FDLE.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Good afternoon. I'm FDLE Commissioner Mark Glass. In general, I just want to say thank you for your steadfast leadership on this. Between you and Governor DeSantis, y'all have been the most amazing team that I've been able to work for to get things done for this great state. And it's incredible of what's been able to happen here in our state and what we've been able to do in law enforcement and public safety. You heard the overwhelming great stats there, and she said over 794 reduction of deaths with dealing with fentanyl and opioids. One death's too many. So with the policies and the other types of capabilities we've been doing in our great state, we have been able to save another 794 families from this tragic events of potentially having a family member lost to this dangerous drug. And like she said, I was with her when she did the weapons of mass destruction, and she is correct. It is a weapons of mass destruction. And I just want to say, with the open borders that we have here, Attorney General and the Governor and myself have gone out to Texas, and we got to see it for ourselves. We got to see in the distance, I don't know if you remember that, with the factory that was making it way off in the distance in Mexico and bringing it across our borders. And it's just amazing to know that that's that close and it's coming in here and then it's traveling into this great state of Florida. But I will tell you, with the SAFE program she just talked to you about, we've had some overwhelming numbers. Sheriff, I really appreciate you. He was one of the first to jump on the SAFE grant to actually eradicate it from his county. And we just want to say some thank you for everything you do. Your men and women of Lake County, we appreciate that, and what a great team we've been able to do. So to kind of give you some idea when it comes to the SAFE grant, we're able to pay for travel, we're able to pay for overtime, we're able to pay for different things such as buy monies and other things that most counties and local municipalities have a problem with getting the funding and fiduciary capability to do the purchases or to even have people work long hours on these cases. Low-level street dealers, we can get those all day long, right? We get those. But what we got to go after is the drug trafficking organizations that are bringing it into our state and into the region, into Lake County. And this sheriff here actually jumped on board. His detectives, his deputies, they jumped on it, and they actually dove well into the SAFE and was able to make some significant events. And I believe that's one of the reasons why what you heard, the medical examiner's report in this county, in this area, we dropped significantly. So let's just go with it. We really started SAFE in the latter part of 2023. Now, the drug deaths you're talking about now with the medical examiner's report is from January to December 31st of 2023. I'm with General Moody. I believe we are going to see another significant drop just based on all the programs that have been out there. But I believe the SAFE program is one of the best criminal justice programs out there for eradicating this terrible, terrible stuff. So to date, there's been roughly 130 SAFE cases that have been initiated among 77 agencies within the state of Florida. And we've awarded close to $20 million in these cases. And like I said again, numbers are staggering. We've made 1,100 arrests across the state, seizing over 300 pounds each in this fentanyl, cocaine, methamphetamine, and type of drugs. And we've also seized $2.9 million in cash, 375 firearms, and over 50 vehicles. And again, this started in late 2023, so we do believe the numbers are going to drop even more so than what you're seeing here. And I will tell you, if we cannot do this without the sheriffs, the chiefs, all jumping on board and doing this with us. FDLE agents are partnering up with them. We're carrying across jurisdictional boundaries, even out of state, to do these buys and purchases and run with other agencies outside our own state to make sure it doesn't come in here to your local county. But also, too, I'm extremely proud of our FDLE members and working with all the local law enforcement on this whole process. And Sheriff, from me to you, I really do appreciate you jumping on board and being a fine example of how to do this. And we just want to say thank you. And General Moody, thank you for your steadfast leadership. You're amazing on this, and we are appreciative of the governor, cabinet, and legislators on all what they've done to protect our great state. Thank you very much.
Sheriff?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here today. You know, I just want to say that, Thank you, General. You're the tip of the spear, for the last several years with this opioid task force. She's traveled the state. She talks to every sheriff. What do you need? She's there for us, and that's what it takes. It starts with leadership. Commissioner, thank you for the kind words. And there's somebody who's not here today that I want to recognize because it's a collaborative effort. We have been tough on these street-level drug dealers in this county, and we will remain tough on them, the pushers of this poison. But it takes a prosecutor to also work that end of the spectrum. And with Bill Gladson and the Fifth Circuit, we have seen the incarcerations of these drug dealers going up to where they actually stay off the streets. We were arresting people 44, 45, and 50 times. That can't happen. And I've had people say, Sheriff, you can't arrest your way out of this problem. And while that may be true, to sit by and do nothing is not the answer. So we're going to remain tough on the street-level drug dealers that are pushing this poison, but having a prosecutor like Bill Gladson backing you up on that is necessary. So if there's areas of this state that's not happening, that needs to be fixed. But thanks again, General, for your leadership, and Commissioner, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Well, again, this is great news. A 12% decline, national provisional stats showing a 17% decline in opioid-related deaths. Floridians should take comfort in that we are headed in the right direction. I, again, would implore, if you are struggling with an addiction, fentanyl is being put in every drug. And if you have ever thought about getting help, now is the time to do that. And there is a resource, treatmentatlas.org, which can direct you to a treatment facility. It can also give you more information on what's available out there based on your specific location and circumstances. I will note just in the past few years on treatmentatlas.org and showing how that corresponds to saving lives, they've seen a 75% increase in activity on their sites. So that is good news. You can also go to Dose of Reality Florida. That is a website that my office runs that has a lot of information on the crisis and resources that are available here in Florida. I'd be happy to open it up to any questions you may have at this time.
What can you point to as far as the decrease? What specifically can you point to that you believe made the decrease go up?
And that's how I started this off, by saying there are so many efforts that are taking place simultaneously to attack this problem. I think it is incredibly difficult to narrow it down to one effort. So you cannot talk about law enforcement efforts to target fentanyl traffickers without talking about us changing our laws to give them the better capabilities to do that. You have prosecutors like Bill Gladson and others around the state that are taking that responsibility very seriously. Our office and many prosecutors have brought homicide charges against fentanyl traffickers that have knowingly killed people by trafficking that drug. There are stepped up task forces and resources given to law enforcement to pull the fentanyl out of our communities, get it off the streets. So you talk about that, but you also have to talk about, we have also started programs. I've stood at a podium and launched Helping Heroes, where we talk about getting naloxone on every single, not just paramedic and firefighter, but on law enforcement officers that are often the first to the scene to respond and that can save a life if they have naloxone on them and ready. How do we get that replaced as soon as they use it? How do we make that easier? We've made it available at participating Walmart stores where they can just walk in, show their badge, get another one so they have it quickly and can get back out on the street. I want to say thank you and congratulations to Lake County Sheriff's Office, who has joined our Helping Heroes program to allow them to do that. We've talked about setting up drop boxes for people to return unwanted medication, so we bring down the addiction levels and others that may not be addicts becoming addicts. We can talk about pushing people into treatment and how we've changed a lot of the regulations in order to allow people to get treatment, medication-assisted treatment, and many times that might not have been available in certain areas before. And so it would be very difficult for someone to say this is the root cause of why we're seeing such success. But I can tell you certainly, without a doubt, the people standing behind me have made a difference. And I congratulate everyone within this particular district that saw one of the largest decreases in the state, a staggering 40% decrease in year over year in deaths. That's a marked number that they should be really proud of. I'm certainly proud of them, but in no way do I believe that that will stop the forward momentum here. The only acceptable number in losing lives to fentanyl should be 0. And I expect that you'll see the same type of passion and energy and proactive thinking coming out of Tallahassee and each of our communities that you've seen over the past few years. And I always want to make sure we are mindful that when we use the word crisis, it almost doesn't seem fitting to what we are actually dealing with on a national level right now in terms of death from a drug. In the 80s, when Nancy Reagan talked about just say no, we were in a crisis and we were losing Americans to drugs. And so we came up with a campaign and we were very focused and we put a lot of effort into saving lives. We lost 3,000, a little over 3,000 people a year nationwide. We're now losing over 100,000 people nationwide every year to overdose. That's preventable. That is the largest killer of working age and fighting age Americans. If that's not the first thing that leadership is thinking about in Washington every single day, it should be. That is how Americans are dying. It's certainly what we have placed as a priority and are working on nonstop here in Florida. And so I think as we move forward into this next year, you're going to see a lot of policy changes and a lot of emphasis and a lot of attention on what has been killing Americans and what we can do in terms of policies to start taking drastic action against the bad actors. Yes, so the challenge in Florida is that we have been proactive in going after, as you know, we have been pushing back against those here committing crimes that are here illegally much more than many other states. I have also been making it very known that sheriffs need to be complying. If there are detainers on those here legally committing crimes, they need to be complying. One of the first things I had to sue on when the Biden administration took office is when they stopped detaining and deporting people committing very serious felonies that were here illegally. That was the kickoff to what has been a challenge over the last 4 years in pushing back in some of these incredibly lenient, if not completely decimated, policies that were to stem the tide of criminals seeking to do harm that are in this country illegally moving and taking root into our states. So I've been working with statewide law enforcement to make sure that the local agencies that are seeing the traditional organized crime are able to identify these transnational criminal members. And what I think needs to happen statewide is you've got to make it harder in terms of penalties and give law enforcement the tools to go after for recruiting these others into these transnational gangs, and also making sure that your statutes aren't just identifying these gangs as we have historically by markings, tattoos, colors, bandanas, etc., that we can look to other resources like declaration of certain cartels or organizations being foreign terrorist organizations as a gang here in Florida that we can enhance penalties on. All of these things need to be looked at by the legislature. I'm certainly going to be a part of that and work with our statewide law enforcement officers to make sure that our laws complement and enable them to go after these very aggressively. And again, I'm not just doing it here in Florida. I'm encouraging all of my colleagues across the nation, other AGs, to look at their laws as well. As you know, we have a federal system of law enforcement, but each state also has its own independent interest in prosecuting crimes. And so the states have their own laws. They need to make sure that they give them the right tools to effectively address what is the new reality here in America, and that is the presence of transnational criminal organization members that have been allowed to come into this country. Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.